The following Dharma talk was given at Boundless Way Zen Temple in Worcester, Massachusetts. Some lines from the Lalita Vistara Sutra. This earth supports all beings. She is impartial and unbiased toward all, whether moving or still. She is my witness that I speak no lies. So may she bear my witness. These are the words attributed to the Buddha in a 3rd century sutra, written or compiled 800 years after the Buddha's death, that purports to be the story of his life. And I wanted to start with this today because I've been quite inspired by the Buddha's life recently. His clarity and sureness about his insights and his discoveries and his own awakening, at least as it's told in a piece of writing that comes down to us from so many centuries ago. A writing, this particular sutra, that was created by putting together many, many different accounts of the Buddha's life. This one starts when he's up in Tushita heaven, waiting to be born, and goes all the way through his awakening and his death. Next week is the date that's usually in Mahayana Buddhist countries, I guess the word isn't celebrated, but noticed as the day that the Buddha died, his Parinirvana day, the day that he entered his final rest. In Mahayana teachings, we say that the Buddha never really died. He's still with us in every moment, not as some kind of idea or historical figure, but as a real presence. He discovered the awakened nature. This was why he was called the Buddha, which means the one who's awake. And that discovery has permeated the entire world, but it was already, according to the Buddha, at least when he speaks in this sutra, already present. Many of you have seen Buddha statues where the left hand is held up, cupped near the belly, and the right hand touches the ground in front of him. This posture or hand position, mudra, is called the touching the earth mudra. And I discovered this sutra by looking for a source about what he said when he did touch the earth. This moment happened, according to these beautiful mythological fairy tales of the Buddha, after he had defeated the armies of Mara, after he had tried everything he could to understand what was going on in the minds and hearts of human beings, tried everything that was available to him at the time, 2,600 years ago in northern India, became adept at everything he tried and still wasn't satisfied with the answers he got from these different practices, including starving himself. And he was finally convinced, and there's a lovely piece in this sutra, to begin eating food again so that he could, when he regained his strength, devote himself entirely to what we might now call zazen, the practice of sitting still and upright and present to everything that comes and goes, maybe focusing on some particular thing in the body like the breath, or simply sitting in the presence of the movements of the mind, the heart, and the body. The legend tells us that Mara, who was the representation of all evil things. The tempter, he's sometimes called. The name Mara apparently literally translates as the tempter. He came to the Buddha. He had had a dream. Mara had had a dream that somebody was going to come along and essentially ruin his life, take away his power. And he summoned everyone he knew, all the demons and celestial beings from all the 10 directions, all the various worlds, and brought them to torment the Buddha as he sat still underneath the Bodhi tree, where he had decided that he was going to get to the bottom of things. But before that could happen, he was tempted by demons. This particular sutra goes on and on and on, lines and lines and lines about all the different demons that came to him while he was sitting still and upright underneath that tree. And temptations of all kinds. There's a lot, I don't know what was going on in the 3rd century in India, but a lot of very particular information about temptations of the flesh, we might say. Beautiful women who Mara had come to torment the Buddha. And the teaching that we hear from this lovely and intense, really, story is that the Buddha just sat through it all. And isn't this what we do to this very day when we sit in Zazen? Anybody who has sat still for even a moment knows about the demons and the temptations and the ways that we are distracted from the essential point, which is, according to the teachings of Zen, right here in front of us all the time. But we get distracted, we get lost, we get disturbed by all of the things that happen moment after moment in this world that's full of greed and hatred and ignorance. We get distracted from the essential point. In the Mahayana story, in this particular story, at dawn, the Buddha realized that he had defeated all of the armies of Mara, all the temptations. And in this sutra, defeated has a very particular meaning. The meaning is that all of the demons and tempters of the Buddha, in being met with this upright presence, didn't die or disappear. They all turned to him and bowed. They all recognized his commitment, we might say, to getting to the essential point. So nobody went away, nobody died or was defeated or disappeared. They turned to him and became his admirers, his students, his people, except for Mara. Mara just couldn't do it. And there's a point in the sutra where he challenges the Buddha once again. And he says, I just don't believe that you understand what is really happening. In our mythology in Zen, we add a beautiful little moment when the Buddha realizes all these things. The armies of Mara have been defeated, turned into allies. And he looks up and sees the morning star, and then he realizes all the teachings that he later in his life teaches to human beings. But there's this little moment inserted into this story where Mara challenges him and says, you are not who you seem to think you are. I don't believe you. And in that moment, in the sutra, it says, he lets his right hand slide over his entire body and then gracefully tap on the earth. And then he speaks what I quoted at the beginning of this talk. He says, "This earth supports all beings. She is impartial and unbiased toward all, whether moving or still. She is my witness that I speak no lies. So may she bear my witness." And the sutra goes on to say, as soon as the Buddha touched this great earth, it shook in 6 different ways. It quivered, trembled, and quaked, and it boomed, thundered, and roared. This calling the earth to witness is something that we can do in our practice. We put a lot of emphasis in Zen, as many of you know who've been following our talks over any period of time, on not knowing, on being present and clear without getting mixed up with ideas about the way things are, but meeting things as they are directly. This doesn't mean that what we discover is that everything is wonderful. It means that we discover that everything is as it is. This is the teaching of Zen, and it's the teaching of our Boundless Way school, that whatever arises in the form of an army of Mara for ourselves, whether it's great grief and confusion, whether it's anger and a call for justice, whether it's a deep fear of what's going to happen to us personally, to our loved ones, to this country, to this world. Whatever fears are arising can be met directly, can be embraced actually as the roar of the earth, as the way things are. When we do what the Buddha did, when we sit in the presence of whatever is arising, that's the work of what he discovered sitting upright through the night. That all of these things will come to torment us, and when we stay open and present, they become our allies. Anger and rage and fear and grief. When we embrace them and see that they are part of the phenomena of this precious world, this life that's the only life we have, sickness and aging, the death of those we love, the terrible things that human beings do to each other, a certain attitude of presence transforms these things, and then we can act unimpeded, just like the Buddha did. He had to be convinced to get up and begin his career of teaching. It took a while. But when he finally did, he taught the very things that we learn and that we know for sure when we practice. We don't learn things in Zen by somebody telling us what's true. Even though, as I said, we prize not knowing, we also prize a kind of knowing for ourselves. As some Zen teachers in China said, it's like knowing for yourself whether water is cold or warm. It's a direct knowing about what happens not to other people, not to some historical or mythological characters in the distant past, but what's happening right now. This sitting in silence and stillness is our way of honoring the sitting upright of the Buddha through that long night. And we, just like the Buddha, can meet everything. And in that meeting, in that recognition, in that basic friendliness to what is arising, even if we hate it, to a basic friendliness to even hatred itself, something transforms. The demons and the tempters all bow And we can do just what the Buddha did. We can touch the earth and call it to witness. We can touch reality and call it to witness. We can know in this world of suffering what the truth of our own nature and the nature of being human actually is. The Buddha let his right hand slide over his entire body and then gracefully tap on the earth. He then spoke this verse. This earth supports all things. She is impartial and unbiased toward all, whether moving or still. She is my witness that I speak no lies, so may she bear my witness. As soon as the Buddha touched the great earth, it shook in 6 different ways. It quivered, trembled, and quaked, and it boomed, thundered, and roared. Thank you. So please make yourselves comfortable. I'll go around and name all of us, and when you hear your name, if you can, please make an indication. We'll start with Corwin, David Rōshi, Jenny, Deb and Matt, Franz, Todd, Tom K., Anna Petra, George U., David C., Alan Sensei, Marcus, Steve G., Ann L., Chaz, Judith, Michael at the Temple, Beverly, John C., Vanessa, Jonathan, George Gason, Pierce, Ann Fine, Rich, Orna, Joe A., Ava, Joe and Pat, Austin, Madhu, Jamie, Michael C., Jesse, Chad, Richard, Sean, Brad, Charles, and on audio only, Adam. So if you have a comment or question, David and I will respond, and please raise your Zoom hand. Yes, Madhu.
Thank you for your talk. A silly question I have. Do you think that, greater the suffering we feel, greater the awakening? Is it proportionate like that? This is what I wonder.
I would say that's not really an important question, Madhu. It really is beside the point. There is some mystery that we come into, and to measure, to begin to say bigger, smaller. Life is fairly intense, as you have noticed. And there is great suffering that we all go through. And there is great peace or great joy that springs out of it. Not so different. But life is intense. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Jamie.
Thank you, Melissa, for the talk. Really resonated, and I'm not sure if I can express this well, but I was listening while chewing on some thoughts that came from a really nice Sangha Care volunteer group discussion last night. And some of it made me think of our cultural or human drive to be independent and do things by ourselves, and how hard it is to allow others in or reach out for help for simple things or big things. And so part of me was listening here's another example of somebody just toughing it up and doing it by themselves. The Buddha's going to sit there until he conquers everything. But then I was touched by the demons came to support and the earth supported. And, I kind of would have loved a human figure maybe helping, but I wonder about that just dance of independence and how that can be such a toxic or a barrier in some ways, my drive to do things all by myself, but also how there's something else going on.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest delusions, thinking that we're alone. It really is. And when the Buddha calls the earth to witness, that's a wonderful example of that very thing, right? We are surrounded. And the teachings of the Mahayana is we're surrounded by Buddhas. And they appear as everything. They appear as the grass and the trees. And they also appear as the checkout person at the supermarket. And they appear as the people who are the most difficult in your life. They appear as certain powerful figures in government. Right? We are surrounded by Buddhas, but we narrow our view and we think, nope, I'm alone. There's no one who can understand me. And that's never true. And yet.
And how wonderful that here in the midst of this huge awakening, the Buddha awakening to the truth of life in ways that have reverberated through the years, he asks for help from the earth, from this moment. And receives immediately. Yeah.
Thank you. Eva.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for your talk. Really worthwhile, and the reminder of the earth witnessing us. And I'm on very intimate terms with my, I can't remember what you called it, not our enemies, our...
Enemies is fine.
The word with a T. You used the word with a T.
Tempers?
Whatever. Sort of tormentors.
Tormentors, yes. Our tormentors.
Yes. So I'm very intimate footing with them. But in the morning, the first thing I always do is to go out into the garden. And I go around the garden and I see what's died, what's coming back to life. And then I do my walking meditation, and it's just such a beautiful thing to do. It immediately brings me back to earth, literally. And it's not that my tormentors aren't there any longer, but it just puts them in perspective. And I feel I'm always accepted and supported by the earth, no matter what. It doesn't matter. It's what you were saying in the sutra, and so it's I think one of my most important allies, I'd say.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you.
And last, Anne Fine.
Thank you so much for the talk, Melissa. And I loved the image of how that the Buddha sort of touched himself and then the earth, that connection. And then because that, that's sort of like, that's what we are part of. But then what I wondered, in the age that we're living, like the earth is doing all of these things that it did maybe after the Buddha touched it. But what is it about how, like it's beautiful, like Eva goes out and feels her connection, but so many people don't, and then the earth suffers. So I guess that's a little dark, but that's also what came up for me.
Never worry about being dark. It's dark. Yeah, it's dark, isn't it? It really is. And if we don't face that darkness, we're in big trouble. Then we do feel isolated, I think. And I'm so touched that you brought that piece out about him touching his body. When I first read it, I thought, what? I never heard that before. But what a beautiful image, right? And we can do that. I think that lesson of recognizing the connection between our own body, minds, and hearts and the earth, no matter what's going on as practitioners. And yeah, we could say the earth is in big trouble and we're in big trouble. Absolutely. And there's no but here. And yes, touch the earth. Right here it is. Witness what I'm experiencing with me. And if we all go together, and we will eventually, the sun is going to go supernova. I hope that's not too dark. It'll be dark, I guess. We'll just disappear. But for right now, we're alive. We're alive, and we feel and we think and we sense. And this is what we can do. And just to end this by going back to Madhu's original comment, I feel like people who don't suffer that much, why would they ever do this? Right? The wonderful thing now is that there's so much opportunity to suffer. It's great, and it is the pathway to awakening. It's not a mistake. That's what the Buddha's very first teaching was, that the world is full of suffering, period. And then he goes on and on and on and on in this particular sutra and then I discovered this, and then I discovered this is exactly the path for us. Enter here. Thank you.